Today I have two SAT writing tips for you. So the first SAT writing tip I have deals with connecting a dependent clause to an independent clause in order to avoid unnecessary repetition. And the next SAT writing tip I have for you deals with placing a sentence within a paragraph in order to save time and be the most efficient that you can be on the SAT writing section. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So today we're going to be doing questions 19 through 22 on SAT Practice Test 6. And the reason that this tip video is going to take 4 questions to do is because I want to show you something to do with pacing and being efficient. Okay, so the first thing that I see when I look at this passage here from SAT Practice Test 6 is I see I have a 1 there. Now anytime that I see I have a 1 at the beginning of a paragraph, I know I'm going to be dealing with placing a sentence. So I'm going to go down and find the sentence I have to place. I see in this case it is sentence 5. So I have to place sentence 5. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to read sentence 5 before I start reading my paragraph. So I see sentence 5 is right here. I have Berlin, and then I have anytime that I have a question within that first sentence that I have to read to place it, I go ahead and answer that question as I read the sentence. So I'll go ahead and do that. So we have Berlin advocated using soil extraction, removing small amounts of soil from under the tower's north side. Okay, in this case, I see that I'm tested on being idiomatic. Okay, if you don't know what idiomatic is, it just means that you're basically writing as you would if you were talking, right? Say that I was going to tell you that Berlin advocated using soil extraction, right? Nothing is wrong with that. That sounds perfectly grammatically correct. But what if I said Berlin advocated to use soil extraction? Well, that's not idiomatic, right? The key part that makes that wrong is the part to use, okay? We wouldn't say he advocated to use soil extraction. We would say he advocated using soil extraction. So idiomatic questions, or idiom questions, if you want to call them that, they deal with pretty much how you would normally talk, right? What would you say? What prepositions would you use? What word choice would you use? Things like that. So in this case, it's really dealing with prepositions, right? And also verbs, right? So in this case, advocated is going to act as the main verb, right? And then using is going to talk about that soil extraction. Okay, so our answer for 21 there is going to be A. We wouldn't say advocated the using of soil extraction because that's really, really wordy. Okay, that's wordy. We don't want to be wordy. And then D, advocating to use soil extraction. Once again, that's also wordy. Okay, it's not concise and it's also not idiomatic. Okay, so answer choices B and C, they're both not idiomatic. They both are a little bit wordy. And then option D, there's no main verb there. Okay, and then with option A is perfectly fine. Option A is our correct answer. It's idiomatic. It functions grammatically correct, so A is our correct answer for 21. Okay, so now keep in mind I'm reading through sentence 5. I have Berlin advocated using soil extraction, removing small amounts of soil from under the tower's north side opposite its tilt to enable gravity to straighten the tower. All right, so now after I've read my sentence, what I do is I come up with what should come before and what should come after the sentence. Then as I read through my paragraph, I can place it. Okay, so what should come before this? Well, I see I talk about Berlin advocating using soil extraction. So what comes before it? Well, I should talk about Berlin before it. Okay, so I should talk about Berlin, who he is, and what kind of his expertise is before this. So before sentence 5, I want to talk about Berlin. Now after sentence 5, I want to talk about this policy he's advocating, this soil extraction. So after sentence 5, I want to talk about soil extraction. Okay. So since he's advocating it here, I'd be looking for something with him now doing it. After he advocated it, it's either successful in his advocation or not successful in his advocation, but I want to talk about something with him doing soil extraction if he is successful in his advocation. So now we can read through and place that sentence as we read. Now notice how much more time that's going to save us, because if we were to read through this whole paragraph and then go back and place sentence 5, we'd have to reread it again, and this way we only have to read it once, which saves us time. So we have enter committee member John Berlin. Now we have a comma. Okay, I see I have the word he is. So this is my other SAT writing tips for today. Now the first SAT writing tip is dealing with placing that sentence 5, right? Talking about how to place sentences and save time. The other one is connecting a dependent clause to an independent clause to avoid repetition. Now in this case, I say John Berlin, and then I have a comma and I have the word he is. I don't want to do that because I just said who it was. So me repeating the word he, or repeating Berlin as an option B, or repeating his in option C, that's all repetitive, and I don't want to be repetitive. The two main things that you want to avoid on the SAT writing section are repetition and redundancy. If you can avoid those two things, it's going to help you out a lot. So in this case, I don't want to say Berlin again, and I don't want to say his again, and I don't want to say he again. So options A through C are going to be wrong. What I want to do is I just want to delete that underlined portion, keep that comma there, which it has to be kept anyway since it's not underlined, and then just say a geotechnical engineer from England who saved London's clock tower, Big Ben, from collapse. Okay, that's using a dependent clause, right? That whole thing, I'll put it in blue, right? From here all the way to collapse. That's a dependent clause that's being connected to my independent clause, which I'm going to put in green, by that comma. Okay, so that's grammatically correct. That works. D would be our correct answer for 19. Okay, so that's the first SAT writing tip. So now we just keep reading to go ahead and answer where we're going to place sentence 5. Now keep in mind, what did we just talk about? Well, we just talked about John Berlin. Now what did I say needed to become before sentence 5? Well, what needed to come before sentence 5 was a discussion of who John Berlin is and what his expertise was. In this case, we talk about John Berlin. We say he's an engineer from England who saved Big Ben from collapse. So we're talking about how he's an expert in geotechnical engineering, and his name is John Berlin. So we're introducing this character who now in sentence 5 is advocating a policy of soil extraction to help save something from collapse, right? Let me see if I can scroll down, right, to help save this tower from collapse. So let's look at sentence 2 and see if that has what comes after, because we've already found what should come before it. Let's double check that by making sure what comes after then is a discussion of that soil extraction. So we have Berlin began a years-long process of drilling out small amounts of soil, which is soil extraction. So therefore we know that we're going to place it after sentence 1. So sentence 5 needs to come after sentence 1. Okay, because it matched what we talked about and what should come before that sentence and what should come after. Now we can go ahead and read on and solve for number 20 real quick. So we have Berlin began a years-long process of drilling out small amounts of soil from under the tower that took several years to complete. Okay, I need to get rid of this whole part right here, right, that I just said, that whole underlined portion. How do I know I need to delete all of that? Well, I just said, and I'm going to put this, I'll highlight it for you. I just said that it was a years-long process. Okay, a years-long process is the same thing as taking several years to complete. Okay, so I'll highlight that as well. Since those two are the same thing and we can't get rid of a years-long process, we want to get rid of the fact that it took several years to complete because that's just repetitive and redundant. And like I said, the two big things we want to avoid on the SAT writing section are repetition and redundancy. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of those. So our answer would be D, delete the underlined portion. So hopefully you can see how that that strategy is going to save you time, right? By going ahead and finding sentence 5 as your first step whenever you see a 1 at the start of a paragraph, what that's going to do is that's going to let you only read through that paragraph once. Now you see that this paragraph's pretty big. Imagine if you had to read through that twice because you read through the first time and then you got to question 22, realized, oh, I have to place sentence 5. Then you had to read through and find where to place it. Now by going to sentence 5 first, what you're doing is you go to sentence 5, you come up with what should come before it and what should come after, and then you're able to place your sentence as you read. So you notice when I read John Berlin here up top in our first sentence and talked about how he was a geotechnical engineer, that matched with what I thought should come before sentence 5. Therefore, I knew as long as sentence 2 matched what I thought should come after, I could go ahead and place it after sentence 1, which I ultimately did. So by doing that, it saved me time because I only had to read through one time in that paragraph. Okay, now our other big tip there was dealing up here with connecting our dependent clause to our independent clause with a comma in order to avoid that unnecessary repetition of he is or Berlin or his being, since we just said our subject John Berlin and we don't want to repeat our subject twice. Okay, so hopefully that was helpful. If it was, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and as always, make sure to have a good day.